Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and my guest today is Mr. Michael Jackson. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Michael, I'm really excited about the episode today. You have a fascinating story. If you permit me, I was just going to recap the story and then I'll let you tell it from beginning to end.
Absolutely.
All right. So you got married. You and your wife had a child, and then you got divorced. The terms of that divorce stipulated that your wife had to run any decision she made by you. Uh,
Yes.
that's a term that she never honored. So she never told you anything. COVID rolls around. The one thing she tells you is she's going to vaccinate your daughter, and you kind of you get worried, and you tell her you don't want it, but she doesn't get back to you. So at the 11th hour, you take your daughter away from her. The criminal code says that a parent can take the daughter away if he believes the daughter is in imminent harm. You get captured. You go before a judge. The judge basically calls you an anti-vaxxer, doesn't care about anything you say. And then the judge turns to the jury and says, that provision in the criminal code that says that if the parent believes the child is in imminent harm, it doesn't apply here. So he broke the law, or he interpreted the law any way he wanted.
Yeah.
With that, I'll hand it over to you, and you can start from the beginning and tell your story, please.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, I was married, and we had a little girl named Sarah, and at the time she was 7 years old. So what happened was when the COVID situation started off, I think it was in April of 21, where they closed some schools across the country in panic and fear, and they closed Sarah's school, and that kind of started causing problems right away because I didn't know what it was at the time. Believe it or not, I was unaware of what COVID was. It just kind of came onto the thing. But they closed the school, and then my ex, living in Regina, 3 hours away, she said she was gonna find some daycare, and I was like, well, why would you find daycare when she can stay with me? And that ended up in a court battle, and I kept my daughter, and it's always been tough since we were divorced in 2000. She left in 2017, but we didn't get the divorce wasn't finalized until 2019. And the whole time we were divorced, she never spoke a single word to me about Sarah. Like, we never had a conversation about her health or extracurricular activities, nothing, zero. And the court order stated that even though she had decision-making rights, like the last say sort of thing, which they give to all women because they don't trust men. And with that, she was supposed to, anything that came up that was serious, had to make a decision. She was ordered by the court to discuss it with me. So literally for, since 18, 19, I guess, till 21, she was basically in contempt of court because she wouldn't discuss a single thing with me. So when the vaccine came out, for almost 9 months, I was sending her text messages. I was sending her like the Barrington Accord, just information on COVID and the vaccine, right? Trying to educate her a little bit, but really softly, not any of the harsh, scary things. Everybody's going to die, but just stuff saying there was concerns. There was pregnant or issues with fertility in women. There was issues with myocarditis, cancer, not cancer. I don't think it was at that time, but there was mostly heart conditions, I believe, allergic reactions, Bell palsy, all that sort of stuff. And never got a reply from her, ever, nothing. And then I started getting nervous when it came up to Health Canada, saying that they were prepared now to do the study on 5 to 11-year-olds. They had started it, I think, 60 to 85 and then worked their way down. And they had just finished 11 to 19 and approved it. Now they were on the little kids. And we all knew what they were going to do. It wasn't a question. It was just when. So on, I think it was the week of November, ending November 18th or 19th and 21, listening to the news, they said that there was hints that Health Canada was going to finalize their decision. I had Sarah that week since the Wednesday. I was supposed to return her on the Sunday. And God bless that I had her at that time. But so she was in my care. So then I kept contacting her that week. No response. I sent an email to her lawyer saying, listen, you guys are in contempt of court. You're supposed to discuss this with me. We're supposed to, talk about this. It's serious. And they came back with, it's not approved, so it doesn't really matter. So we have no comment. That was the lawyer. But see, that was the whole setup, right? Lots of judges and the people on the government side say, well, you should have went to court way beforehand. You should have had all this worked out, blah, blah, blah. But what do? So you draw an application, you go to family court, and you say, I don't want my daughter vaccinated. And the other side says, well, there is no vaccination yet. It's not approved, so it's moot. There's no point arguing it. And then they dismiss it. It's like a setup, right? Like you have to understand the way the family court works to understand the positions I went through, or like the procedures I went through and how it all panned out. But basically, I wouldn't have had a case in court. So I had to wait. And they knew that. And they were hoping that, that Sarah would be with her mom and I wouldn't do anything too terrible and that she'd just get vaccinated and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But I was a little smarter than that. So after that, I sent a warning letter to the lawyer, said, you're in contempt, blah, blah, blah. Again, nothing. And then on the Friday afternoon, I believe I got a text message through Viber from my ex saying, I'm going to do whatever the government tells me to do. So right away, I knew that I wasn't going to return her. There's just no way. I mean, that is not parenting whatsoever. So again, they flew it in. They approved it on that Friday. They flew it into the country on Sunday night. I believe in Montreal or Toronto came in, and they were injecting children on Monday morning in Toronto. It went that fast. So I was supposed to return her. I told my ex, I'm not returning her until you make a decision and talk to me about this. And to be honest, I'm not afraid to admit it now. If she would have told me she was going to vaccinate her in a conversation, I never would have returned her. I mean, there's just no way. I wasn't going to let my daughter take that kind of risk. So what happened was she sent the hunchman, the RCMP, to my door. Now in Canada, the RCMP don't have any jurisdiction over family law. Nothing, zero. They can come to your house and they can threaten you and argue with you and everything else. But basically, it's up to family court to make that decision. RCMP are criminal. That's it. But in this country, RCMP do whatever they want, and they don't follow their own mandate, and they don't follow the law. So most women, when they get upset with their husband or pissed off with their boyfriend, they call the RCMP. And the RCMP come and they threaten and harass the men and sometimes arrest them, because they get pissed off or whatever, but they don't really have any recourse legally. So when they came to my door, it's exactly what I told them. You don't have any right to be here. I didn't talk to them. I didn't open the door because I know how they work. So I talked to them through the window and I said, you don't have any right to be here. This is a family court matter. I'm withholding my daughter. Leave. They make threats and they yell and scream, but they left. So then what happens is my ex has to go to court and they have to file for what's called a police clause. And a police clause in Canada can mean multiple things. But the general idea is that the police have the right to take any means necessary to retrieve the child. So they can come in, break your door down, arrest you, whatever they want, and any police force. So she applies for an ex parte order first, which means I don't even get notified. The judge dismisses it, says, no, you were not doing this for that. So then she has to reapply to regular court, which takes like a 2 week.
Can I stop you?
Yep.
There's just a lot in there. So the RCMP cannot intervene in civil matters, is what you said.
Yes.
But a police clause elevates it to a criminal matter?
No, it just elevates it to the point where they can intervene. So it's like, because most things in family court are dealt with both parents in front of a judge. That's why police don't have any authority to make those decisions. So if the court order is not being followed or there's difficulties, you have to go back to court. The police don't know either side of the story. They're just listening to a pissed off man or a pissed off woman. So they don't have the authority to make that decision. It has to go back before the judge. But in this country, police ignore that and they act like they have the power when they don't.
Okay. So when it's a criminal matter, the police can make a judgment call. When it's a civil matter, the judge has to make a judgment call and instruct the police to intervene. Exactly.
And that's what that police clause is. That's kind of giving them the authority from a judge to go and do something because they don't have the authority on their own, which that proves, the whole police clause proves the fact that they don't have the authority. But nobody in Canada realizes this because lawyers don't tell us anything. It's all hidden. They don't want you to know anything so they can make the money, right? but I can tell you
And
the way the law works.
my last question before I let you proceed: the ex parte order, that doesn't seem rule of law to me. So, is there a case where that does apply, like terrorism, or what is it?
Well, ex parte order is like an emergency thing. So, you have a real fear that something's going to happen, or maybe that that person's going to avoid service, like they won't respond to the court or something like that, or there's just been a lot of difficulties. Um, like maybe the guy's got a bad record or something like that, but I don't really know exactly all the reasons for it. But I just know that it has to be serious for a judge to make an ex parte order. Like, everybody in civil law has a right to respond, right? And if you're asking a judge to make a decision without giving the defendant or the what is it, the petitioner, and the other one is the
Plaintiff?
sometimes, pardon, plaintiff. Yeah. So sometimes the plaintiff can't, you can't make it so the plaintiff can't respond. That's not the way civil law works, right? They have to be able to respond. And an ex parte order doesn't give them the right to respond. They're asking the judge to do something without the other person's input. So judges are hesitant to do it, but they will do it depending on the seriousness of the nature, right?
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
But that tells you that the judge didn't feel that my overholding her was serious. Otherwise, he would have issued it. So then, so what happened is she goes back to court and she gets a regular application, and she's asking for a police clause to be able to get my daughter returned to her, our daughter returned to her. So this time it goes up before Justice Lay, and I have like a week and a half to respond with an affidavit and all that. So I fill out an affidavit, send it to the court, all that sort of stuff, and we go to court. So I tell the RCMP are kind of hanging back, waiting now to see what happens. So we go to court and we go before a Justice Lay, Layh in Regina. And so we got up there. The petitioner is always the first one to speak. So they get the crooked lying lawyer, Deborah Haid, who my wife has had for 6 years. She gets up and lies her ass off as per usual. And then the judge asks me. And the minute I mention my concern, he goes, "Oh, you're one of those." And then he says to me, anything you bring as evidence to support your case, there's more evidence to deny it. So there's no point in you arguing this. And then he said, the worst thing that's going to happen to your daughter is a sore arm. And I wonder what he thinks now after everything that's going on when he makes comments like that and rulings on people, right? Like these judges, they're not doctors. They don't know what it is. They're only supposed to interpret the law, not make it up. So responding, yeah, somebody just put in the comment, it's the petitioner and the respondent. Sorry, that's what it is. So so he says he's going to reserve his decision, which I immediately interpret, because I've been dealing with these judges in Saskatchewan for years, that he's going to get off the phone, he's going to make an order, they're going to let everybody but me know, and then the police will be at my door, grab my daughter, and too late, too bad, right? So I'm sitting at home with Sarah and I'm waiting for the decision, and I'm self-represented, so they're supposed to notify me immediately. And it's just before lunch, and I call the courthouse and I say, "It's Michael Jackson. I had a hearing this morning with Justice Lay. Has a decision been made?" "Oh, yeah." "So why wasn't I notified?" "Oh, it went to your wife's lawyer." "Yeah, I would imagine it did." And I said, "Can you have that sent to me immediately through my email?" She goes, "Yeah, I'll go and get it and send it to you." So then I call Deborah Haid's office, and I get her voicemail that says she's gone for the weekend. But guess what she did before she went away for the weekend? She filed the order and then sent it to the RCMP in Cardiff without notifying me. So I kind of get the gist of what's going to happen, and I start to write out a notice of appeal, which some people call a stay of an order. And I draw it up and get a call back. And I get my email, shows me a decision. He says, no, I don't have any standing. You got to return the daughter. And he invokes the police clause, giving the police the power to do whatever they have to do. So I write up a notice of appeal. I have to drive to another town because I live in a town that has nothing. I have to get it sworn and signed, and then I have to fax it to the Court of Appeal. And at the Court of Appeal, the registrar, her name was Amy Gruthhouse, still is. So I fax it in, and then I call her to confirm that she received it. She said, "Yes, we've received it. Your notice of appeal is accepted. The court order stayed. It's null and void what Justice Lay just ordered. Great. I start driving home. I get about 5 minutes from my house. And again, it just, God is in this so many times, right? I get anonymous call. I pick it up, and it's the Cardiff RCMP constable. I can't pronounce his Chinese name, but it's Tsang. And he informs me he's at my house and I need to come out. They have a court order to retrieve my daughter. I tell them that they don't, or that they may have, but it's null and void. A stay has been applied. A notice of appeal has been filed. They have no legal right to be on my property. They need to leave immediately or they're going to face legal action. Well, they don't like hearing that. So they start yelling and swearing at me and telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. And I think I'm this big shot lawyer and I should just shut up. And they're coming in whether I like it or not. And then I give them the number of Amy Groothouse, the registrar of the Court of Appeal, tell them to call her. They do. I find out later, not then. And they go ahead and break my door down anyways, just for the fun of it. So I have the video of their cruiser. You know, when they pull up, they have a camcorder in their cruiser, and they're pointed at my front door. And there's Constable Dick, D-Y-C-K, the other one, and Sang, and they're walking back and forth, talking to me on the phone. You know, late. I see this later in my disclosure. They're talking and they're calling me names, and they're so mad. You can see them pacing back and forth in front of my house, and they're so angry, right? They're just like, they just want to break the door down and like arrest me, and they don't know what to do. They're confused, and they're talking to me on the phone. And finally, after the last conversation, you hear Constable Dick, which is the worst of the two. He says, "Oh yeah, really?" And he hangs up the phone. And he walks up to the other one and he says, he just gave us permission to break his door down. And I'm like, oh, really? Somebody's going to give you permission to break their door down when you don't have a right to. But even more interesting is during that whole time they're walking back and forth talking to each other, they're trying to come up with a legal reason to break my door down. Because what got learned later was that they knew before they even left their detachment that court order was stopped. And they still left the detachment with the point of coming to my house and trying to get my daughter, even though they knew their court order was null and void. But they're walking.
I just want to put something in context here from the judge not informing you of the court order.
Yeah.
And from the police officers trying to come up with some justification to break into your house. This is no longer like dispassionate law. This isn't about like an independent judiciary. So like if you're playing Monopoly, if me and my buddy are trying to figure out how to not give Michael Jackson his $200 as he passed go, we're no longer objective. Like they basically turned against the people.
Oh yeah. Well, in Cardiff, it's been like that for years. I have a relationship with them because of a business dealing I had with a crooked body shop there, and they a lot of them are young. It's a training called a training detachment where they send a lot of young guys there, but they usually send some, some kind of failure at his job. You know, somebody's been a constable for 20 years and never got anywhere. And they'll bring them in there too to train the young ones so they can continue the dysphoria or whatever you want to call it of bad policing, right? You know, let's train the new ones with the old dumb ones who don't follow the law so we can continue screwing our country up, right? But anyway, so they, they're going back and forth and they're saying, well, you know, maybe we can break the door down because, you know, she is in danger, right? And the other cop goes, no, she's not really in danger. Well, maybe we can do this. And they're trying to come up with ways to justify breaking my door down. And in the end, they were so bloodthirsty to break it, they just did it anyways. So they broke the door down, and then it shows the one cop, Dick, walking out of my house, and it looks like he's on parade. He's got a 30-year-old crank pellet gun in his hand, and he's got it set up like, you know, in the air, like an assault rifle. And he comes strolling out of my house in front of the camera and carefully places it in the back of the RCMP truck, like he just like stopped a terrorist. And it's a pellet gun. And so after they left that place, they went around and they told my neighbors that I was wanted on abduction of a child and gun charges, and that there was a warrant for my arrest, which was a complete 100% lie. So I never went home, obviously, that night because I don't trust them. They don't follow the law. And I stayed with a friend for a couple of days. During that time, I was contacting the the Crown Attorney in Regina to find out if there was a warrant, if there was any justification, because I knew that they had no right to break my door down. I knew they had no right to even be on my property. And they wouldn't answer me. So we just decided to go home. It's like, they have no legal right. I'm just going to go home, whatever happens. So we snuck back in my house in the middle of the night. A couple days later, I think it was Tuesday, we get home, and then there's a message on my machine from the sergeant in charge of this Cardiff detachment. His name is Ignatiuk, Ignatiuk, Sergeant Ignatiuk. It's like, oh, yeah, just so you know, we found out about the stay, and yeah, there is a stay. You don't have to worry about us. We'll let the court deal with it. We're not coming back. Fine. So me and Sarah, we have a dog who'd been home for a couple days alone. We take him out for a walk. And this is a tiny town, you know, like everybody knows everybody's business. And we just go around one block, you know, and we get home. And I never brought my cell phone. I get home and it's a call from Ignatiuk. Hey, I see you're home. So, you know, they told everybody I'm wanted on a warrant. So everybody's watching for me. So as soon as they see me and my daughter and the dog, they call the RCMP. It's like, you don't have to worry. Yeah, it's just good to see you guys are home and safe and everything's okay. Not even 20 minutes later, half an hour later, I hear sirens and the emergency horn. So they have sirens, and then they also have the sort of thing. So I pop up the blind because they were closed, and there's like 3 cruisers at my house. And it's at daylight, all the sirens, the horns, everything's going. And I have 3 outer doors to my shop. I have a big shop with an apartment upstairs. All 3 doors, kicking, banging, yelling, screaming. Hey, we have a warrant for your arrest. Open up. We're here to get your daughter, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on for about 20 minutes. You know, Sarah's freaking out. I'm a little freaked out myself because I see the seriousness of the situation, what these guys are willing to do. And then they go away. And I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. So it gets dark. I mean, it's in November. So it gets early December. It's dark pretty quick. So about 6:30, something like that, 7 o'clock, it all happens again. The sirens, the lights, they're banging all the doors. And this time they're yelling, we ain't leaving until we get your daughter. We're going to break the door down. We have a warrant for your arrest, which is a total, complete lie. Because if they had a warrant, they wouldn't knock. They'd just kick the door in, right? But no, they had no warrant. They had no authority to be there. It was just harassment and intimidation. Because once I opened the door, they grab my daughter or grab me, put me in cuffs and take my daughter and make something up, which is what they do, right? So I ended up calling 911. And I said, this is Michael Jackson. I'm in Caryville. Do you know who I am? Oh, yes, we know who you are. How does 911 know who I am? So I've never called them before. So I said, listen, I'm in a serious situation at my house. I have the Cardiff RCMP detachment at my door. They're threatening me with arrest, that I have a warrant. They're going to break the door down. I'm in fear for my life and the life of my daughter. Because at this point, there's no way I'm handing over Sarah to these cops. Nothing is going to make that happen. So they say, okay, sir, what do you want? I say, I need to speak to someone in charge of the division in Saskatchewan. Don't send me back to that detachment in Cardiff. I want to speak to a senior officer. And they said, and I made it as explicit as I could, like really crystal clear. And they said, okay, fine. I get a call back from the detachment where they're doing this. And it's Ignatiuk. Hey, I hear you're trying to get a hold of me. You having trouble? Like sarcastic, taunting me. And I curse and swear whatever I did, F you, and I hung up. And then I called back the 911 again and went through the whole spiel again. I said, I want a supervisor. Supervisor, I have to wait. Supervisor comes on, and they tried to gaslight me and say that, we didn't understand what you meant. We thought it was okay. And, blah, blah, blah. We're going to take care of it this time. We'll get you into a senior supervisor. And I was pissed. Okay, fine. And I have the recordings of this too as well. So then I get a call back. Same guy. Hey, I guess you're really having trouble now, eh? And I think it might have even been the guy downstairs banging on the door who returned my call this time. So it's blatant cops breaking the law and putting threats of harm on someone and danger. My daughter's crying. She's scared. And I'm telling her, don't worry, Sarah. I'm not going to let them take you. It's not going to happen. They have no right. So finally, the guy's yelling from down outside, and he says, You just call my boss, call my boss. So I called him, Agnatic, and I made some deal that I would turn myself in like a week or something, which was just a lie to get them to leave. So they left. And so then that stay that I filed, that notice of appeal, that gets heard by the Court of Appeal of Saskatchewan, the highest court in the province. Now,
Before you
usually,
get to that,
yeah,
I have some questions if that's okay.
sure.
So one question is, and one of the audience members, she kind of pointed at this. They're saying that they have a warrant. They lied about that. Otherwise, they would have broken in. They want you to open the door so that they can pull you out and arrest you. Like, what is it that's preventing them from just knocking down the door? Like, they have no respect for the law anyway. Is it like a home invasion is a step too far for them?
I think so. Plus, I think they knew me and they knew it wouldn't be that easy. Like, I don't have guns or anything like that, but I would have fought to the death. I would never have let them take Sarah. So I was prepared to lay my life down, right? And I think they knew that about me, that I'm not the kind of guy you can just push around, because I've had dealings with them before, and I've stood up to them. I've stood my ground, right? And that's the worst thing for a police officer, someone who knows their rights and stands their ground. You're not going to be stupid. Most people aren't going to be stupid. They'll take the arrest and then fight it in court. But when it comes to, like, if they would have arrested me and taken my daughter, well, everything would have been gone, done. It's over with, right? They take her back to Regina. Her mom rushes her to the closest place she can, gets the injection. It's over with. So this was a really serious situation on my mind, right? And they knew that too. They knew why I was holding her. And I don't know why they didn't. You think they would have after whatever they did, but remember, they'd already broken my door down once illegally, broke a court order. And so I think they were nervous, right? They were just hoping that they would put fear into me, but I don't believe in fear. So it just didn't work.
That's going to lead into my next question. One of my good friends here, he's a criminal attorney, a defense attorney, and no, he represents all these, they're bad guys, like drug dealers, criminals,
Yeah.
murderers. And the cops go in and they completely violate their rights, smash their car without a warrant and all this stuff. And his clients come to him. They're like, what can we do? Like, is there anything we can do in the court? And he's like, not really. Like, there's no way to punish the cops. Is there any way to punish them for humiliating you, saying there's a warrant out for your arrest, smashing your door, showcasing this pellet gun as a gun?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to sue them civilly. There is the police complaints board that is supposed to be like, exactly.
Good luck with that.
Exactly. So the only way to punish them is basically to sue them in court. And I still plan on doing that eventually. There's damages to my property, the harassment, the intimidation, the lies, but I'm kind of waiting till this ends because I just have enough on my plate as it is. But there's no way to punish them. I mean, if you had a real politician maybe somewhere in Canada that would stand up and bring it to the House of Commons and do something about it, but there's not a single politician like out there right now that's elected that has a backbone. So none of them will do anything, right? They just, whatever. It's one person. I mean, if that happened to 100,000 people, it'd be different. But when it's one person, everybody just turns a blind eye because it's not happening to me. I don't care, right? So, but this is what's coming. These cases like mine and Kirk Reese and David Drover and all these other people like you're talking about, this isn't just in one area or the same circumstance. This shows a pattern, right, across Canada, where mostly the RCMP, city police are the same, but it's mostly the RCMP or the hatchet men, and they go around, trying to set examples to put fear into communities in different parts of the country. Maybe it's even in parts of the country where people are known to stand up. I don't know. But it's not just a test case. There's a pattern of this intimidation and harassment and law breaking from the police. And it's growing. And eventually people are going to have to realize, too late. We just sat and drank coffee and watched these videos and did nothing. And now they're knocking at my door. Well, you're not going to get any help, right? It's going to be too late. So now's the time to act.
One thing I noticed, I'm just going to share my opinion, with the Freedom Convoy, the trucker convoy, if that was instead of a trucker convoy, if it was a lawyer's convoy, they would have treated it a lot differently. But they go after like the lowest elements of society. Like they start with the blue collar, the ones that are vulnerable, and they pick them off. And the people in the cities or the professional class, they're just like, it's never going to happen to me. That guy's a criminal. That guy's an
Yeah.
alcoholic. But
Yeah.
it will eventually get to them.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. If it was one
So
of their own, it would be. I mean, look at you see a cop get shot or killed in the country. Oh my gosh, it's headline news across the whole country. They send cops from all over the country to the funeral. It's like, oh my gosh. But what happens when an innocent man gets killed by a cop? Nothing. Zero. It's such a double standard and such a huge injustice in this country, the way the police and the courts work. It's yeah, it's destined to fail for sure.
So I'm sorry for interrupting you. I think you were talking about the stay on the court case.
Yeah, so then usually it would take a few weeks to get before the Court of Appeal to deal with a stay, because it's not like life-threatening or anything like that. But of course, this is the vaccine, and it's Michael Jackson, who's been before the Court of Appeal before, so we're not going to let that guy get away with this. So there's a hearing within a week at the Court of Appeal. So this time it's before Justice Luer, Leuer, who is now, like the rest of them who got promoted out of this, he's now the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeal in Saskatchewan, of the whole court system in Saskatchewan. He's the top dog now. So it's before him. The petitioner gives her side, my ex. I'm the respondent. I give my story, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. And so he asked my ex's lawyer, Deborah Haight, he said, can you guys just like hold off on the vaccine for 30 days, let this get before a regular judge and get this argued out and blah, 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 blah? The answer is no. So, all these people making these comments against me, what do you think that means when a appeal court judge asks them to stop the process for 30 days and they say no? To me, that says the minute they get her, they're going to vaccinate her, right? It's pretty obvious. So again, we make the argument, they say no, and he reserves his decision, just like usual. So right away that day, I went into hiding. I wasn't going to hang around and wait a second time for the cops to show up my door, because now, if that guy orders that, I still have one more channel I can go to, which is I can ask for a review of the single judge of the Court of Appeals order, and I can ask for a 3-panel review of what he did, which I could have done, but I know what was going to happen. So we just went into hiding right away. We went into hiding with no plan and like practically $0. And we just drove. And somebody said, hey, I know a place. And then the next person said, hey, I think I know another place. And we just kept traveling like that. And people took us in, me and Sarah both. And it was beautiful, man. It was God directed for sure. We met good people. They took good care of us. And during that time, didn't take long, I did an interview before Christmas. I think it was December 20th or something like that. So maybe 2 weeks in after the appeal court hearing. And I wanted to show everybody, because I've been listening to the news. There was never an Amber Alert issued. It was just my ex-wife on the CBC crying, right? He's so mean. He's so mean. And like, I don't know if Sarah's being fed. I don't know, where they are, and I'm so afraid. And it's just drama, pure drama. And she also did a couple interviews where she said that it had nothing to do with the vaccine, that it was about power and control, right? That I just wanted to hurt her, which is the whole divorce, the whole relationship was all about her. It was never about family or my daughter. It was always about her. Every time I've ever been to family court, every time I've been to criminal court, it's always, he hurt my feelings. They've never, ever accused me of anything with my daughter. I've been an exemplary parent from day one, never had a problem. But every time it goes to court, it's her crying about how despondent she is and how emotionally devastated she is. Nothing about my daughter. In fact, to this day, she's never even given a reason for wanting to vaccinate my daughter. Not one. Most parents would, retort and say, well, I did my research and I believe it's best for her and I want to protect her and I love her. She never said anything like that. Not on any interview, not in a single courtroom, not in any affidavit she's ever written has she ever said she believes in the vaccine. She just merely using Sarah as a weapon. That's it. just a weapon to hurt me. So where was I?
They took you in from home to home.
Yeah, so we went from home to home. So I did an interview with Laura Lynn Thompson only a few weeks in, because I wanted everybody to see that she wasn't abducted. She was in okay condition. Everything was fine. So in that interview, Sarah's sitting beside me with Laura Lynn, and we talk about things. We talk about the reasons, so everybody knows she's happy. She says she doesn't want to be vaccinated. You know, she knows the risks of it because I've taught her, not brainwashed her, taught her, which is my responsibility as a parent to teach your kids, right? Your beliefs. So she knew all about it. She's a really intelligent little girl. And yeah, we did the interview and it went viral, and, you know, lots of people saw it, and the RCMP got really pissed off because they, it was like, I don't know, it was like an insult to them, I guess. Like they must have felt I was taunting them, but you know, they got all pissed off, and, you know, but they in their press conferences, we don't feel that Sarah's in any danger. You know, why isn't there an Amber Alert? Well, you know, it's a family matter. It's nothing serious, blah, blah, blah. And during that time, actually, the mother, my ex-wife, she was actually petitioning the court to find the RCMP in contempt because they wouldn't issue an Amber Alert. And their response in court was, it's a family matter. It should be dealt with in family court, not criminal. That was their position until they had this little hearing in January of 22, which I was not privy to. And they had this little hearing with a Justice McCreary, and my lawyer, my ex's lawyer, has now been upgraded to the head of legal aid in Regina, Saskatchewan, Jill Drennan. And they have this little hearing with Justice McCreary. They take away my joint custody. And it wasn't like full stop gone. It was a temporary order to restrict my joint custody and give me supervised access, which is really strange, right? But the following day, and something legal happened there. I don't know what it was, and I can't get a lawyer to admit or confirm what happened. But the next day, the RCMP issued a cross-Canada warrant for my arrest and did a big news conference after they took away my custody, which is, again, very strange. Another thing to mention is before this hearing even happened, before they took my custody away, I was entered in negotiations with the RCMP. Detective Curtis Yowzy was the lead investigator, just a liar and a deceiver, you know, a con artist. And he contacted my best friend and said, hey, can you act as a liaison? And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And kept getting my friend to get me to give a number out or something like that. Like I was an idiot. You know, I'm going to give him my cell phone number so we could talk, because I was using burner phones. So we were in negotiation for like before they even took away my custody. And I was telling them in the emails and the text messages that I was sending to my friend through Signal, and then he would relay them to them. I was telling them that as long as I have a concrete document from either the Minister of Justice or the Attorney General of Saskatchewan stating that Sarah would not be vaccinated, I need that to bring her back. But if you can get that, I'll bring her back. So they respond after a bunch of going back and forth with some affidavit from my wife saying, okay, I'll wait to vaccinate her until the court makes a decision. That's not the same thing. It doesn't mean anything. She's saying, I'll let the judge decide. Well, the judges, we know what they're going to do. They've already done it, right? I'm not going to put it up to a judge, especially a corrupt one in Saskatchewan. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Affidavit, you wanted
so that's what they provided. So then I said to them, I said, that's not good enough. And I said, I'm not going to speak to you anymore until you put someone in this conversation who will actually do something. And that was like, I think 2-day pause, something like that. And then we were in Vernon, BC at the time. I went to a local mall to make a phone call, and I called JCCF, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. And my only request was, they knew who I was. I had contacted them previous for help, and they denied. My only ask was that they would take over negotiations with the RCMP, just so it was legit. And they refused. And then I was arrested making that phone call in the parking lot in Vernon. And we were I just hung up the phone, and I was talking to Sarah. She was in the back seat, and they came up, and I got out of the car first. I walked up to them, and they had traced the phone, and no problems whatsoever. They put me in cuffs and everything. And I said, can I say goodbye to Sarah? Nope, not after what you did. So yeah, they took me away. They took her away. They sent me to a jail in South Okanagan, I guess it was called. And then they extradited me back to Saskatchewan and gave me a bail hearing. And in the bail hearing, we had hired a very expensive lawyer named Louis Mercier from Merchant Law in Regina. Is supposed to be a stand-up, law firm. My friend paid the guy $4,500, and he spoke for about 30 seconds and sat down. And of course, I was denied bail. He put up no argument whatsoever for me to get bail. So then they locked me up. And I don't. Do you have any questions?
I do, actually. So going back, I was just thinking, like, if this was 50 years ago, before we embraced this whole no-fault divorce, and when we actually believed in the concept of parental rights, if something like this rolled around where they're like, government's going to say, we're going to vaccinate all the children, and one parent said no, what would be the sane, rational thing that the government would have done? Said, this isn't the jurisdiction of the government. The parents make the decision.
Yep, I think so. And even in recent times, I think it's came down to the point where if it can't be a consensus, it doesn't get done. They don't just take one parent over the other, right? Unless one's
right.
like a drug addict and blah 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 blah. But generally, if it's two rational parents, and if you can't come to a consensus, I think it just stays. I mean, you get the odd case where you see, parents seeking to leave the country to get a child treated with some, not proven medical experiment sort of thing. And, the government will sometimes side with one parent or the other. But I think in general, when it comes to like something like this, it'd be a no-go. But because this is the COVID, we can't have that, right? Everybody has to be vaccinated. So.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. I'll let you continue. I got some more questions, but it's based on the rest of your story.
Yeah. So I get put in custody. You get sent to Regina Provincial Correctional Center, which is a supermax jail. And if you look at a supermax jail, it's a rating. It's a high security, high violent jail. And the Regina facility is one of the most violent in the country. So of course they'd put me there because, of my record and the way I am. So they put me in there, and they put me in every range. There's 3 floors. The bottom one is the young guys who like to fight and get in trouble all the time. Second floor is a little older, calmer, more serious charges. And then the third floor is the pedophiles. They put me with the pedophiles. And I don't even know I'm with the pedophiles until somebody from the second floor comes up, a serious guy, and he says, hey, man, do you know why you're here? And I said, no, I'm just blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, we do. We all been following your case, and we support you. And we don't think you should be here. And we're going to get you off this floor. You come down with us, and we're going to take care of you. I was like, cool. And they basically did. They got me transferred out of there, got my own cell, bottom bunk, which is like you don't get until somebody leaves, and that works that way. They got me the bottom bunk, and because I'm older, I guess. And they basically took care of me. And I never had a problem in there except from the guards. I never had a problem. I mean, there was a lot of torturous things going on, which I'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to point out something more important. So when I first arrived there, I basically have 2 charges. So I have the section 282 of the criminal code, which is abduction and contravention of a parenting order. And then the family court, civil law, also charges me with contempt of court for breaking the same court order. And I have no lawyer, no nothing. So what happens is the criminal is going to obviously take years or whatever to happen. So they come at me hard and fast with the civil contempt charge. They give me a legal aid lawyer named Alex Deacon. And I'm going to remember these names and put them out there so people know who these people are. Alex Deacon works for Willows, Walsh, Orr, and Brundage in Regina. The reason I get a private lawyer instead of a legal aid lawyer is because my ex-wife has a legal aid lawyer. So it's a conflict of interest to give me another legal aid lawyer. So I get a private lawyer, which makes you think, oh, I have a chance. This guy's going to be straightforward and honest. So he comes to the jail and he meets me and he tells me that I have to plead guilty to the contempt charge because I broke the order. It doesn't matter why. And I said, well, isn't there a defense even in civil court for contempt? That if you believe your child is going to suffer harm, that you have a right? He goes, yeah, but that's not going to work for you. And I said, well, that's what I'm pleading. Well, it's not going to work. I said, well, I don't care if it's going to work. That's my defense. That's the truth. So he leads me astray for like almost 3 months with, I guess I should point out who the judge was. So the judge on this case, his name is Justice Michael McGaw, M-E-G-A-W. Arrogant, crooked judge, just like the rest of them. And I've been before him before on certain chamber matters with my ex, and he never listens to what you say. He just kind of rules. So we get put up with him. The first court date I have with him and this Alex Deacon, Justice McGaw gets on there and he says, I'm going to remove Mr. Jackson's custody right now permanently and all his access. Do you have a problem with that? And the lawyer says, no, Your Honor, I completely understand. So just like that, without me even speaking, my custody's wiped out, gone. And I'm on the phone. I'm like, no, wait, stop. And Justice McGaw says, shut up. You don't have any right to speak. You have counsel. First time in my life I've showed up. Well, not the first time. Second time in my life I've showed up with counsel at a family court hearing. Didn't go very good. So, and the reason why they picked Justice Michael McGaw is because earlier in that year, he ruled over the first family division over COVID situation where a mother didn't want her daughter vaccinated and the father did, and he ruled in favor of the father to vaccinate the child. So they picked him because he had already set precedent in the province to rule on my case. Isn't that interesting, eh? So anyways, we go through hearings in family court with this contempt charge, and I request that my wife be put on the stand for cross-examination. I request expert witnesses. I request time to prepare my case because I'm in jail. And one other thing, he did not. Oh, I asked that he recuse himself because he has already been. He's already presided over a decision where he ruled in favor of the vaccine. So I wanted him to recuse himself because he was biased. He refused everything and said that the trial had to go through within like 2 weeks or something, like rush. So my lawyer starts preparing. He says, people start providing information. Dr. Paul Alexander, Dr. Byron Bridle, they both write a report for me for free, and it gets filed into court. And I think things are going along swimming. I meet with that Alex Deacon twice more, and both times he says, I'm telling you, you got to plead guilty. You got to plead guilty. You're never going to win. And I said, nope, I'm not pleading guilty. You better listen to me. And he's got all this information before him. And then the weekend before the hearing, which was, I think, in May, I'm not sure, I'd have to look it up, but he comes to the jail to see me. And he says, I said, so are you ready to go? And he said, no, you need to ask for another adjournment. I go, I can't. He's given us 3 and he's pissed off. He won't give another one. He goes, well, you have to. I said, why? He never prepared a single damn thing. He'd had 3 months. He'd done nothing because he assumed I was going to take his advice and plead guilty. Yeah. So he says, I need you to do this. I said, no, you're fired because I'm not going to lie and you're not trustworthy. So I fired him. So then you got to deal with legal aid because I'm in jail. They want to know why I fired this guy. I told them specifically why I fired him. And they said, okay, we'll find you a lawyer who's sympathetic to this, who understands your case. So I wait a while and they give me a lawyer called Roch DuPont. Roche, I guess. They call him Roch, but his name is R-O-C-H-E and then DuPont. And he comes in wearing a mask into the jail.
It's always a bad sign.
Yeah, very bad sign. He goes, oh, I'm just wearing this because I have health issues and I'm being careful. Okay. He goes, I believe in what you did and I'm going to fight for you. And don't worry, I fight, man. I've been doing this for 40 years and I'm the best there is and blah, 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 blah. And it goes on for another couple months preparing for the hearing. And this guy's, he's having discussions with the judge without me. He's talking to the other lawyer without me. All sorts of shenanigans are going on that I've made clear that I don't want to go on. And everything's going on behind closed doors. So then there's a meeting with him and the judge and the other lawyer, Jill Drennan, where the judge instructs him what he wants to argue. Like a lot of judges will tell the lawyers, this is where I see the issue, and this is where I want you to focus your argument on, which I don't understand, but that's the way it works. So we get to the trial, and I wasn't privy to that call. It's just what I was told. We get to the trial on contempt, and the Crown goes and says how bad I am and blah, 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 blah. Not the Crown, sorry. Jill Drennan, my ex's lawyer. And then Roch DuPont stands up and says, Your Honor, we all know that Mr. Jackson took his daughter to prevent her from the vaccine, and that's why he did it. And he sits down. That's it. Like a one-word sentence, and it's over. And even the judge, which I was shocked, turns to him and says, hello, you didn't argue anything that we discussed. Nothing. He says, do you need more time to repair? Do you want to submit written arguments? And he goes, because he caught him off guard. He goes, okay, yeah, I'll submit some arguments. Okay, hearing's over. I'm in jail, like listening on the phone, like, what the fuck just happened? This is two lawyers now, and they both just sold me out. And so I called the lawyer the next day, and I said, hey, Roch, how you doing? Oh, hey, blah, blah. I said, what happened yesterday? Like, why didn't you present the argument? And he began to berate me on the phone and said, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. You're going to jail the rest of your life. I quit. And that was it. He hung up. So I'm forced to call legal aid again. And I explained the story of what happened. And they said, no, you fired him. I said, I didn't fire him. He didn't even present his argument. And they said, no, you fired him. We're not giving you another lawyer. You're done. So I wrote a long letter. Pardon?
Can they do that?
Legal Aid of Saskatchewan can do whatever they want. Their mandate is not, they're not compulsory to help you. They can say no. And I found that out the hard way. So they can basically do whatever they want. And they're only out, it's a circle, right? They're all involved in it. The RCMP, the courts, the government, the judges, the clerks, the registrar, it's all the same. They're all one big group, and they all got a system going. And there's nothing you can do about it. And legal aid's just as corrupt as the rest of them. They're taking money from the government. They're taking money from fundraisers and everything else, and they do nothing. Half the guys in jail there may be up on like a murder charge or serious. Their lawyers don't even call them till the day before the hearing and tell them, okay, this is what we're doing. You just shut up and I'll take care of it. There's no law in this province. It's one of the worst. In fact, I just found out recently that the Superior Court of Canada, Supreme Court Superior, listen to me, they're not superior. The Supreme Court of Canada has been ruling negatively on cases in Saskatchewan for a long time. In fact, they've had some instances in the recent past where they've sent decisions back to Saskatchewan that they've only spent like a half an hour going over and said, this is absolutely ridiculous, and sent it back. So the appeal court in Saskatchewan is ridiculous. It's not that they don't know the law, they're refusing to follow it. And it's just corrupt. It's crazy. I thought the Supreme Court would be in on it, but when I found out that they've been kind of like slapping the pee-pee of the Court of Appeal of Saskatchewan, I was shocked to hear that. So
sorry,
anyways, why
is that? Like, what's unique about Saskatchewan? Is it the weather, the water? What makes it more corrupt?
Yeah, stupid's in the water for sure. But I don't know. I really don't. It's because you would think judges would take notice of that, right? Like you wouldn't think they'd want to be embarrassed or be challenged, that they don't know what they're doing. But I think, in certain provinces, they're being kind of paid, maybe just given promotion, whatever, power, just to do what the ruling class wants them to do. And it doesn't matter if they get reprimanded or whatever, as long as they keep their job and able to keep doing what they're doing, they don't care. Like we all see in the society right now, they are totally promoting the wicked or the inept, right? Like you don't see people moving up the ladder because they're really good at what they do. They're getting moved up the ladder because they do what they're told, right? It's got nothing to do with their skill. I mean, even in jobs, and you look at just society itself, how many times have you had a job where they promoted the guy who said yes, who didn't know his job whatsoever, and you're working under some idiot who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, but because he does what he's told, he gets the promotion, right? You're working twice as hard, far more than him, but it's just the way society works now. and it's just prevalent everywhere.
So where were we? I don't even know if I had a question. You
We were on
fired two
the
legal aid.
yeah. So the two legal aids. So then I send in a letter to the court, and that's another thing. When you're in custody in jail, and I don't know if this is supposed to be, they told me that the jail guards that they weren't going to be the mediator and send my letters or documentation to court anymore. So how is someone who doesn't have a lawyer supposed to fight a case when they're sitting in jail and you can't even send in information to the court? Yeah, you can mail it. So you can buy a letter, paper, and a stamp, and you can hope to mail it, maybe get there, and who knows when, because it has to be reviewed. So maybe take a month to get out, and you can mail something to the court, but they won't allow, they stopped refusing a fax or to anything for me while I was in there. So what happened was Justice McGaw released his decision, said I was the worst father in Canadian history, basically, and I needed to be reprimanded, and found me guilty of contempt of court and sentenced me to 60 days in jail. And I think there was a monetary fine. And he also added, because he took away my custody, so no contact with your daughter, no contact with your ex-wife, and you're barred literally from the whole city of Regina. How can you bar someone from a city? Like when you have like death threats and violence between parents or boyfriend, girlfriend, they say don't be near their school, their place of work, their residence, or if you see them in public, stay 500 meters away. But me, because I'm a serious hardened criminal, you can't even enter the whole city of Regina.
Sorry to jump in. What was the argument he gave? Like, was it that you're going to kidnap every child in Regina? What was the argument?
They don't give arguments. I could show the documents, and I will here eventually, but it's legalese. They provide bullshit case law. They don't really provide reasoning, right? Because there is no reason. You can't reason that out. You can't make sense of that sort of an order, right? But so anyways, I'm found guilty of that. So now I'm dealing with the criminal matter. And I have what seems to be a good lawyer named Luke Kapow from Saskatoon. Seems that he's on board, tells me he believes in God and he believes in what I did. And Rebel News had used him a few times for their, what was their fund called? Their democracy fund, to fight some tickets, the tickets for protesting in a park or something over COVID. So he'd had some experience in the matter. So they picked him. So we went through and it was okay. And he was telling me that now that I've been found guilty of the contempt, that they can't charge me criminal anymore. They have to drop the criminal charge. Otherwise, it's double jeopardy. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. So he does his first application to Heather McMillan Brown. That's the lawyer or the judge in my trial. I know you thought it was a guy, but it's a woman. Heather McMillan Brown is her name. So he enters an application, files an application for what's called autrefois convie. So it's AUTRE. I think it's FOR, or I don't know, autrefois convie. It's a French term, and it's like double jeopardy, right? You can't be charged for the same offense in the same location, the same circumstances, and be found guilty and sentenced. That can't happen twice. So we have the hearing, and my lawyer did really excellent. And I have his argument. It's perfect. He says it's the same charge. It's the same court order that he broke. It's the same time, the same place, the same circumstances. Everything is identical. So you must drop the criminal charge of abduction, contravention of a parenting order. He's already been found guilty of it. So the Crown gets up and gives her argument, and her argument was basically, that's not fair. You can't let him go. He needs to be punished. And my lawyer gets up and says, doesn't matter. The law is the law, and you can't go over it because of your personal feelings. So then the judge, who's basically been the Crown attorney through my whole proceeding, because the Crown attorney has been completely incompetent. So the judge always takes over and says, well, I stayed up last night and I was reading some case law from 1967 that said different. And he said, yeah, well, since the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that law doesn't matter anymore. You can't use anything until after the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the judge gets visibly pissed off and says, oh, okay, well, I'll have to ponder that. So she writes her decision on that and says, no, same reason as the Crown. wouldn't be right. So she doesn't base it on the law and what the law says. She bases it on her opinion that it wouldn't be right to drop the charges against him because he'd be getting away with it. Even though I've been in jail for, 8 months already, which the average in Canada is like 0 to 3 months, and suffered all this harassment and harm and everything else. No, we can't let him go. We have to further this persecution to make an example out of him. So I lose. She says no. So then I'm in jail going through all this trouble. I actually go on a hunger strike a couple of times. The guards are harassing me. They're ripping scriptures off my wall, like Christian scriptures, throwing my Bible on the floor. On my hunger strike, they denied me my Bible. They wouldn't even let me have it. No religious material whatsoever. And just been hell on earth with these guards, threatening me, like not with words, but just trying to intimidate me all the time. They would put a different person in my cell on almost a weekly basis, generally one that's extremely violent. It's got serious drug issues, and they'd put him in my cell hoping that something would happen. But God protected me and told me not a hair on your head will be harmed, and nothing happened. So, going through all that crap for a long time, then my lawyer introduces another application, and it's called same thing, double jeopardy, but it's under the Charter of Rights and Freedom. It's called an 11H application. And it says the same thing. Canadian citizen cannot be charged and found guilty twice of the same offense. Produces the whole argument all over again. The judge comes back. I already told you, doesn't work. Boom. That's her answer the second time. No argument whatsoever. So I'm stuck till trial. So then in February of 23, last year, January actually, my lawyer calls me on the phone and says, hey, I just thought I'd tell you that if you want to go home today, you can go home today. This was on like a Friday morning. I said, what? He goes, yeah, you just got to plead guilty and they'll make it time served and you can go home. And I said, nope, I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, the Crown seems to be convinced in conversations with me that they're not going to be able to find a jury that's going to find you guilty. So they're getting nervous. And I said, well, good. They should be nervous because I'm not pleading guilty. He says, okay. And then 3 weeks later, just out of the blue, they let me out on bail. I don't know why, it's probably God, maybe just enough is enough, but they let me out anyways and put me on bail.
Okay. A couple of things. One, to the lay person, common law, just any court system, specifically common law, the judge is a referee, right? He's not supposed to be a participant.
Bingo. Check out the brain on Brad.
So for people in the audience that's listening, if you go to there was a leadership race in the House in the U.S. when they elected McCarthy, and everybody stands up, all the congresspersons stand up and they vote. And they brought this one woman in. She's a nobody, but she's the one that's saying, stand up, sit down, be quiet. That's the role of a referee. The referee is not God. The referee is not above those representatives in the House in this example. It's just somebody that the representatives say, we will respect you for the purpose of this as a referee. Yeah. But we've lost that concept. Now we think the judge is this omnipresent force.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people don't, you picked up on that really quick, and I'm glad I didn't have to say it because usually I have to explain it, but that's it. The judge in my case, Heather McMillan Brown, all the judges I've been through, like even her, my ex-lawyer, Deborah Haid, a complete nincompoop. Couldn't present an argument if her life depended on it. But every time I went to court, she'd say some stupid lies, like accusations, and then the judge would present the argument. Oh, so you mean blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's not what she said at all. Where did you get that from? So it's always the judge doing the arguing because they are the one who tailor the argument to their decision, right? They can't have a dumb, stupid Crown prosecutor lay out this whole argument and then find you guilty on their argument. They have to find you guilty on their own argument so that it makes sense when they sentence you, right? It's so corrupt. It's unbelievable. Anybody with common sense can sit in a courtroom and go, wait, something's wrong here.
Yeah, it's not how it was intended.
No.
I have another point. Again, this is another U.S. reference. Dinesh D'Souza, he's just a figure in the U.S. he made a mistake. Like he made a donation. Instead of the donation coming out of his personal bank account, it came out of his business bank account, and they
Yeah.
threw him in jail for it. And the way that he described that they did it is the FBI came up to him and said, "You committed bank fraud." He's like, "What are you talking about, bank fraud?" And they're like, "Oh, you wrote a check and it went through the banking system." And then they're like, "You also committed mail fraud." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You put that check in an envelope and you use the mail, the U.S. Postal Service to send
Yeah.
it." So they start like putting all these charges on top of charges. Did that happen to you in this case?
No, no, I was only with the 2 charges. And the way they do that in states, that's so they can get criminal organizations on RICO charges and that, right? Well, you mailed it or you drove that money across the border, so blah blah blah. But no, that wasn't a case in my situation. It was basically just the judge, instead of interpreting the law and ruling on the law, she made the law and she made the arguments for the law. Right? It's brutal. So I'll tell you that during my incarceration, after you're allowed a second bail hearing after you've been there for, I don't know what the time period is. Is it 6 or 9 months? So I was given a second bail hearing. And this bail hearing, I had my lawyer and he put up his good argument. The Crown didn't even really argue for me not to be there anymore. It's like, he's already been here this long. He hasn't tried to contact his daughter on the phone or anybody. Like, I don't see any reason to really keep him. She didn't really put up an argument. But Justice Dawson did. And Justice Dawson said that we can't let him go because if we do, his friends who've been foster parents for 20 years and gone through hundreds of children, helped hundreds of children, they're going to drive to Regina and do something to his ex-wife, kidnap his daughter, and then drive to the border. Mr. Jackson is then going to cut off his bracelet and meet them, and neither him nor Sarah will ever be seen again. That was the judge's reason for denying me bail the second time. I think she just watched a movie on Netflix or something, and maybe she had some powerful dream that told her what to say, but it's just like nothing to do with the law or the case. The Crown never even mentioned anything like that in her reasons for me not getting bail. That was completely made up by the judge.
It sounds like my mom when she has a falling out with one of her friends and logic goes out the window.
They just start to make shit up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
Michael, I got one more question.
Yeah.
You had a house and they threw you in jail. So like, how does the property tax situation work there?
So I was behind in my property tax for quite a few years. I'd had a lot of financial difficulties due to some health issues in this divorce, and having to travel a full day to see Sarah, and sometimes it was 3 times a week, and it's like cost me like $200 to $300 to drive to Regina and back with a full day, and so I wasn't working, so I fell way behind in my property taxes. And what happened was, sorry, can I stop for 1 sec? I know this is odd, but I just have to let the dog outside for 1 sec.
Sure. Remember, we're live, so don't say anything in the background.
2 seconds. Yep.
Yeah. Any audience questions? Kirk, I see you there, and I put both your posts up there. You had 8. Kirk Reese had 8 legal aid lawyers who went against him for the custody of his eldest son. That's got to be a record. And yeah, I agree. People don't like hiring people that are smarter than him. Kirk Reese is on. He's saying that they seized his properties and on property taxes, I guess.
So I had fallen quite a bit behind in arrears. So I had to make an agreement with the town that I had to make a payment to catch up on my back taxes on a certain day of the month, every month, or they had the right to seize my property and sell it at auction. And they were hell bent on that, because I'd even had times where I needed a few more days, and they're like, nope, you pay it on the day or we take your place. So, and it was a legal contract, so it's just the way it was. So one of my concerns in leaving was losing my house, because I never intended to just disappear forever. So I had friends who were paying that tax bill every month so they wouldn't seize my house. Well, the RCMP went to the town office and told them not to let anybody pay my taxes, because they wanted to use my house as a way to get me to return, the thought of losing my house. So the town, of course, because they wanted my house, they agreed, and they told my friends that they were no longer allowed to pay my property tax bill, which I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever heard somebody say you can't pay someone else's bill. as long as it gets paid. But they refused my friends. And then we got around it just barely in time, like a couple days, where I had to have my friend become my power of attorney. That's the only way they'd let him pay my tax bill every month, which is just insane. So they were constantly trying to intimidate my friends and do things to get me found, but never really negotiating like they should have about the vaccine, right?
Sorry, I had a question. Is that legal? I mean, me asking this question is almost pointless now. We don't have law in Canada, but is it legal for the cops to go and say don't accept money? Like, is this a jurisdiction issue? Can the cops do that?
Well, the thing is, who's going to admit that happened, right? Do you think the town who wanted my house is going to sign an affidavit saying, yeah, the cops came and did this? No. It's all just people working together to promote evil, right? And my friends will testify and write in an affidavit that they were threatened. And but that's their word against the town, the cops, the judges, whatever. It's you know, you can't argue when they join together like that. You can't prove it.
I'm gonna give a risque analogy, and I might regret this in the future. I'm watching this TV show called Deadwood, and there's
Yeah.
this guy. This guy has a brothel, Al Swearingen. He's a pimp, and he brutalizes the women, prostitutes them out, and then the women give like a cutback to him. But like if he beats up one of the girls or puts them in a room for punishes them, he can't then be like, well, where's my commission for yesterday? Well, you imprisoned the girl. She couldn't service any men, so she didn't make a profit to give back to you.
Yeah.
And to me, like the government, they're telling you like you have to give me this much amount of money. They're taxing you on your property, but then it's the government that's throwing you in jail. Like there has to be a law that says if you throw somebody in jail, you can't expect them to also pay their taxes.
They're still coming after me for child support.
Yeah, I guess that's also another one. Yeah.
When I was in jail and before when I wasn't working. So it's all the same. But anyways, I'll just continue a bit there, Payman. So after that, I got released. I'm on bail, and we're going through what's called pretrial once a month. So in the pretrial, my lawyer files an application for a voir dire hearing to have Byron Bridle and Dr. Byron Bridle, and Dr. Paul Alexander testify at my criminal trial. And so Dr. Byron Bridle, by video, does what's called a voir dire. It's a full day hearing where he testifies to his qualifications to be an expert witness. And the man is impeccable, right? Dr. Byron Bridle's designed vaccines, made vaccines, studied vaccines, taught doctors what vaccine are and how to inject them and everything. And he's the boss. And the Crown Attorney's argument is, well, he doesn't inject anybody with them at the hospital. How is he an expert? Just like that was their argument. This is a Crown Attorney, I'm telling you, that is so incompetent. And you know what? The judge ruled in favor of the Crown prosecutor. No expert witness for you, Mr. Jackson. Yeah, on that basis. So it's just insane. So then we go through other things. I find out that they picked my jury from the city of Regina. I don't live in the city of Regina. I live in right in the corner near North Dakota and Manitoba, very rural area. In fact, my jurisdiction is Estevan, which is an hour, even that's an hour east of me or west of me. So I'm like, my trial should have been in Estevan. That's where the crime was committed. That's where the charges were laid, all that sort of stuff. And that's where my jury should be picked from. They somehow sneakily got the charge and everything brought up to Regina. So they picked my jury pool from the city of Regina. Half of the jurors were medical people, nurses, and things like that. And that's the jury they picked for me. So
yeah, for these sort of like, if you're taking a contrary position on vaccines, any court system in an urban setting, it's a death sentence. Like, you're not going to get a fair trial.
Yeah, they're like, city of Regina is like 94, 96% vaccinated, right? And another funny thing is that when they're I just totally lost my train of thought again. I don't know what's going on. I'm just tired, I guess.
You were talking about North Dakota change of venue.
No, not North Dakota. Just it's supposed to be a jury of your peers, right? So people from where you live. So if it would have been people from the rural area where I lived, I'm sure the ruling would have been a lot different, right? The jury would have looked different. It would have been farmers, and guys working on oil rigs and things like that. It wouldn't have been people working as a nurse in Regina Hospital who were vaccinated. So it's just a totally different outlay, right? So that was another thing that was fixed when we went to trial. So they tried to, my lawyer quit. So like 4 or 5 months before the trial, my lawyer quits without any reason, says, I just can't make it. And the real reason he quit, which nobody knows, is me and a friend of mine sent him a letter. And we said, listen, we have some concerns. And that is that we've been asking you to get those 911 tapes, the ones I talked about where I'm calling the police, for like almost a year. We've also asked you to get the communication, the Viber messages, to seize my ex-wife's phone, and like they did mine, and get all the Viber text messages I was trying to reach her about the vaccine to show that I was trying to work it out. And we're wondering why you haven't done that. Within, like, he couldn't have even read the whole thing, because within like a minute and a half, I get CC'd an email to the Regina courthouse where he quits. And he says to the clerk, he says, sorry, I have a scheduling issue. I can't make it. I'm going to have to remove myself from this case. And I never said that in court to anybody about the private stuff, but I know, he got challenged and he didn't like it, right? So I have a hearing. He has to have a hearing, and he has to explain to the judge why he can't represent me anymore. And he gets up there and he says, I have a scheduling conflict. And the judge says, well, you've known about this date for almost a year. He says, I know, but this is really important. I can't miss it. And I just, for the record, he states on the record, this has nothing to do with Mr. Jackson. We've had a great relationship, blah, blah, blah. This is to do with me. Since then, I guess he's quit or done different law. So maybe he did have another reason. He just used that as an excuse. So a couple days later, I have another pretrial meeting with a different judge, this Dawson character who made up this Hollywood movie about my bail. And she says, it's come to our attention that you fired your lawyer. And I was like, nope. And she's, well, that's not what I heard. And I said to her, I said, you know what? I said, you're a liar. And I said, you're a liar, because I was in that hearing and it's on record. And I have the transcripts where he states it had nothing to do with me, that we had a good relationship. And she kind of like backstepped and this and that. And I said, I want the transcripts from this hearing as well, because I'm tired of you judges lying and making up a narrative all the time about who I am. And she, blah, 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 blah. 3 days later, it was over a weekend, I get a letter, registered mail from legal aid, saying, we're not giving you another criminal lawyer now because you fired your lawyer. Even though my lawyer stated on the record that I didn't fire him. So I had no lawyer. So I had to go through this 2-week trial, and I ended up having to self-represent because I didn't have $100,000. And where do you find a lawyer after the last 3 ditched you? Probably because of the government threatened them. Where do you find a lawyer you can trust now? So then the judge wants me to take a court-appointed lawyer that she chooses. I say, nope, I'd rather go on my own. And she says, well, no, you have to have. And I said, nope, I'm not going to do it. So then they bring in case law and she says, I'm going to appoint an amicus curiae and you can't stop me. And I said, what do you mean I can't stop you? I don't want a lawyer appointed by you. You're all crooked and corrupt. And there's a new case law out there in the Supreme Court. And it is a guy in Calgary last year who murdered 2 people who they had to literally tie to a chair and remove to another room in the building to watch by video because he was crazy. That's the reason they used to appoint what's called an amicus curiae, who's a lawyer loyal to the court who's supposed to advise me. And then she tells me, oh, by the way, and not the Crown never asked for this. Again, this is the judge, says, by the way, you're not allowed to cross-examine your ex-wife. It's like, what? What do you mean I can't cross-examine my ex-wife? And this is their case law. A rapist cross-examining his rapee. That's what they use to deny me the right to cross-examine my ex-wife at my own criminal trial, even though I'm my own lawyer. So they say the amicus curiae gets to cross-examine her. And I said, my questions? Like, it's up to me what questions you ask? No, it's up to him. Well, how does that figure in my criminal trial where I'm facing up to 10 years in prison, that this lawyer appointed by you, who's loyal to you, asked the questions of my witnesses? Too bad. That's the way it was. Yeah, it was brutal. So at the trial, it actually went way better than believable. I was able to cross-examine everybody and got the truth out of every single person on the stage. There's only one person that lied. That was a friend of mine who said I was going to take and kidnap my daughter to Russia. And he just did that because I stopped talking to him because he got vaccinated and lied to me. I couldn't trust him anymore. But all the cops, I got them all up there. I showed the videos of them in front of my house lying, that they knew there was a court order. I showed my ex even on the stand. I presented evidence from our custody trial where she stated she didn't believe in vaccines and she didn't want our daughter vaccinated with the measles and MMR and all that because she thought it caused autism when she was born. This is the same woman now doing this. And I presented that at trial. The amicus questioned her on it. She said, yes, I said that my daughter's own immune system is better than the vaccines. So it's like, it's such a setup, right? It's so obvious what's going on here. And then she also admits that she broke the court order and never spoke to me for 9 months about the vaccine issue. And I said, she's been in contempt of court for over 9 months. No penalty, no punishment. That's why we're here today, because she broke the court order. Doesn't matter. Ignored. So then we get to the end of the trial after all this comes out. And like I said, I'm charged under 282 of the Criminal Code, abduction and contravention of a parenting order. And the defense is that if a parent believes their child's going to suffer imminent harm, they cannot be found guilty of this charge. In fact, they don't have to prove it. They just have to believe it. You don't even have to show proof. And I tried to show proof at trial. I brought up the Health Canada's own vaccine injury reporting system. It's not theirs, but it's their own. And I brought it to court, entered it as evidence. And I didn't even bring a new updated one from how bad it was now. I brought the vaccine injury list from Health Canada's own website from September of 22. There was already 15,000 serious adverse effects and a few deaths. I presented that as evidence, and when I started telling the jury about it, the judge told me I can't because I'm not a professional. I said, I can't read what's on our own government's website. She said no. So I wasn't even allowed to tell the jury about the injuries the vaccine was causing. So anyway, so when she's giving the instruction to the jury, she basically says to them, this is the point of this is the defense and blah, 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 but that doesn't apply to Mr. Jackson. If you find that he took his daughter, then you must find him guilty. So the jury went, they had their free lunch. Then they came back after lunch and said guilty. And that was it.
Okay, let me jump in. This is the one part of your story that just blew me away. Your entire defense is that under the criminal code, if you take your daughter or kidnap your daughter, but if you believe that they were under imminent harm, imminent threat, then it's not kidnapping. You're justified to do that. The judge just came in and said to the jury, nah, you got to disregard that.
Yep.
This goes back to my argument. The judge is supposed to be a referee. Like, how can the judge just do that? Like, that was the crux of your defense.
Yep, exactly. And at that point, I had won. It was obvious that I had won. They hadn't proven every single cop who got up there, my ex, all my friends said he was the greatest dad I've ever seen. They were so close. They had a perfect relationship. I had people testify that when they would drive Sarah home, that she seemed afraid of her own mother, that it was a totally different girl, that when she was with me, she was happy and free and laughing. When she went home, she was just miserable and scared. And I had everything wrapped up. And then the judge said that. And they knew it. They knew I had won. And they had to stop it, right? So now I've been dealing with sentencing. And, had a sentencing hearing. I showed up on the day of the sentencing hearing. And the Crown and the amicus curiae are supposed to put in a brief, as well as myself. They showed up and handed me their briefs on the morning of my sentencing hearing. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need time. Like, you can't just do this. And the judge is like, no, you're going forward. And then the Crown surprisingly spoke up and said, well, Your Honor, I admit, I just handed it to him this morning. He hasn't even looked at it. So the Crown gave her spiel, and then they waited a month to have me do mine. And of course, you listen to the press, and it's like, oh, Mr. Jackson wasn't prepared, and Mr. Jackson needed more time, and blah, 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 blah. The Crown or the media always spins it a different way, right? Because they're at every single trial I go to, every hearing. They're CBC, CTV, Global, and Regina Leader Post are always there watching what's going on, but they never report the truth. aspects of it, but not the whole truth. So then I went back a second time, and I started with my brief, and my brief explains the reasons why I shouldn't go back to jail. The Crown wants me to go an extra 6 months, so a full 2-year sentence, plus 3 years probation, plus 200 hours of community service, like the max on everything. And the amicus brief said, no, this is ridiculous. He doesn't deserve, he served enough. And it was my turn. So I get up there and explain just the fact that the court has kept me away from my daughter for 2.5 years is far more punishment than anything. But besides that, I spent a year in a supermax facility under 21-hour lockdown for the whole time, sometimes a week lockdown, sometimes in solitary confinement. I said, I've served enough. A year in remand is equal time and a half to 18 months. The case law that the Crown Attorney used to support her position to be going back to jail is brutal. I'm going to release the case law too. It's like she provided 20 cases. One of them, a woman took her child to Los Angeles for 22 years before she was found. And her reason was, I was sexually abused as a little girl and I thought my husband was going to. And that's why she kidnapped her daughter. She got 3 months probation. There's Don Walker in Saskatchewan, which is a case I presented. At the exact same time I was in jail, a Native woman from Saskatoon parked her brand new Ford shiny red F-150, like with the tire sitting right near the river in Saskatoon. She faked the death of her and her son, I think 10 or 11-year-old son, forged passports, got illegal money. I don't know how she did it, but found a way to get money, and then impersonated person for the passport as well, crossed international borders to Oregon. This is a story that's well known if you Google it, and was apprehended by the RCMP. She was brought back to Saskatoon. She was put in jail until she got a bail hearing, which was, I think, 4.5, 5 days, and she got released on bail. I'm like no criminal record either. I'm like in contact with the RCMP the whole way. I put a video that goes viral showing my daughter's okay and my reason. I don't cross enemy lines going across the border. This woman does all that, fakes the death of her kid, and she gets out with no jail time. She got sentenced this spring. She pled guilty. You know what she got? A year CSO, which is an in-house arrest. She has to be home between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. for a year. That's her sentence.
Basically, that's my sentence. I never leave home after like 8 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. But they want me to go back to jail. And it's just all the case law they provide, same thing. Some parent disappears with their kids for 11 years. They come back, they get like a year in jail, or they get 6 months, or they get probation. But what the government's trying to do, and this is why this case is so important, and people really need to step up. And, I don't care if you like me or hate me, whatever. You better start supporting me and help this case get turned over, because if you don't, you're not going to have any legal recourse in this country to protect your child from anything. And that's what this is about. And that's why they're not letting go. And that's why they're digging their heels in. They're breaking the law. They're looking stupid. Doesn't matter. They have to make this law. They have to make it precedent, so that if any parent tries to protect their child from anything, they're going to say, nope, the law comes first, not your parental rights, not your beliefs. So you're guilty and you're going to prison. They're trying to scare the whole country into doing it. Oh, you don't think your kids should have puberty blockers, so you're not going to return them to the hospital? You're going to jail. You're not going to call, Billy, Sarah, or Jezebel, or whatever you want to call her. So yeah, you're going to jail if you're not going to recognize them by their female name or their male name or whatever. This is what this is about. And people are just like watching this go by. I've had no support until just recently. Nobody's donated to my Give, Send, Go to try and raise money for the appeal. People are the same thing. Well, it doesn't matter, right? It's not happening to me. No big deal. We'll let them go. But I'm telling you, if this doesn't get turned over in the appeal court, this country's in for a rude awakening.
So I put everything under the umbrella of the erosion of parental rights, which is an erosion of private property rights, kind of. And all of our rights are just being transferred to the government.
Yeah.
I want to get into that. I just wanted to mention one thing. This gentleman here, Fundamental Justice, his name is Trevor Halsworth. And he's got like a similar story to yours, maybe not as extreme. He also went to jail. But he said, do you know this guy?
No.
He goes to court. I'm going to simplify this. the plaintiff's lawyer, he says, I don't know, the house was blue, right? And like, he lies, it's a red house. He says the house was blue. Trevor Halsworth says, the plaintiff is lying. So the judge goes to the plaintiff, not the plaintiff, and puts the plaintiff on the stand. He said, what did the lawyer say? Did he lie and say the house was blue, or did he tell the truth and say the house was red? And she's like, oh, he told the truth and said the house was red. And the judge is like, all right, I'll believe that. Even though Trevor showed documents showing that the plaintiff's lawyer was lying, the judge gave an avenue for the lawyer to lie again to get out
Yeah.
of the lie. Like, these people are, I cannot overstate how little respect I have for the judges.
Yeah. They need to be voted in, not appointed. That's the problem. We need to vote them in like they do in the States. I'm going to tell you something else going to blow your mind. So, I've been fighting in the appeal court and in regular court for access and for them to follow the rule of law in my family custody for years, right? Which is, a lot of this is just punishment for standing up to them, right? So I'm going to tell you what happens to a lot of these judges. So the judge that was involved in taking away my custody, Justice McCreary, when I was on the run, I said they had that secret little hearing. Well, her and my trial judge were both appointed judges in 2019 on the same day by Trudeau. Just coincidence. First coincidence. Second coincidence. That judge, McCreary, a woman who took away my joint custody temporarily that time when I was on the run, they made her an appeal court judge 3 months later. So now she serves on the Court of Appeal. The lawyer, Jill Drennan, who was head of legal aid Regina, the city office in Regina, they made her a judge after that hearing 3 months later. So the judge got promoted to the appeal court, the lawyer got promoted to judge. The lawyer, Jill Drennan, who got appointed to judge 90 days after that, so 90 days on the King's bench, she's a judge, she gets appointed to the Court of Appeal with 90 days experience as a judge. So now, and Justice Luer, who oversaw my hearing at the Court of Appeal, is now the Chief Justice of Saskatchewan. So now, when this goes to appeal, 6 of the 7 judges on the Court of Appeal have all been promoted due to my case. Coincidence.
Good luck.
Doesn't
Good luck
matter,
with that,
though.
yeah.
They have to be held to account, right? You don't look at any situation now in this country and say, oh, it's impossible, I give up. No. You have to. You have a responsibility as a human being. You have a responsibility to the rest of your citizens of this country to stand up and stop these people from what they're doing. You can't show fear. You can't give in. They take your house, so what? It's a house. You get another one. Like, all these people are just cowarding out because they're going to lose something. You're going to lose a lot more if you don't do something now. I can tell you that.
No, it's very strong words. Michael, we're at an hour and a half. There's one other thing I want to talk to you about. Let me see. There was a comment. This is just for the record. This isn't. I'm not fully endorsing this, but this is from Canuck Saram. He's saying, even more reason for all men everywhere in the West to wholly and unconditionally reject marriage. What contractual protection does a man have? None. So why enter into such a contract as marriage? You and I talked offline about, and I'm not blaming women for this, but just this whole assault on the family unit,
Yeah.
the endorsement of no fault divorces. What's going on?
Brother, I don't know. I mean, it's been going on since the 60s, right? When the sexual revolution happened and women left the house and wanted to work, which I'm not chauvinistic or against women working or whatever, but it all started back then. It's all been attack on the family. I think it's all perpetrated by the devil himself to just take the father out. The father's the protector of the family, right? The father's, and you can say women protect, yeah, they do, but in the Bible and everything, it's the father has the spiritual leadership over the family. The father is the protector. He has a covering over his family, a prayer covering, a spiritual covering that's given by God, right? He is the head of the household. And that's what these attack is on. Because if you remove the father from the family, there's no protection for the children. The minute you remove the father in one of these divorces or most divorces, what does the woman do? She becomes married to the government, right? The government, takes over the kids because she takes them to all these government subsidized daycares and government housing and government this and government that. So that's her new husband. You're out of the picture. And anytime you try to exert your parental rights or control over your child's future, you get slapped, right? And you get knocked down, and they'll do whatever they can. And if you fight them, most dads, they commit suicide, they go into depression, they become lost. But that's what they want. But when you stand up, when you're like me and you say no, and you fight them, they're scared. Like, the only reason I'm here right now is because they're afraid of me. And I take pleasure in that, right? They wouldn't be doing this to me if they didn't think I was a threat. But they know I'm a threat. And I'm not going to stop until I see them removed from office, from their appointed paychecks that they receive. These judges are corrupt in this province. There's no doubt about it. I don't know them all, and I'm not speaking to them all. But every single judge I've been before has been corrupt and had an agenda. And it's obvious, painfully obvious, because they don't listen to the truth. You can have your ex make up like 14 pages of lies, and then you can come in your return affidavit and produce 14 pages of replies with documents to back up every single, like you said, the judge gives that lawyer another lie to get out of another lie. So you can back up all your answers, replies with evidence. Doesn't matter. They don't care. They'll believe the one crying and the one lying. They will not investigate truth whatsoever in the courts in Saskatchewan. It doesn't matter. It's moot.
The only thing I'll add is I think that the government doesn't give a damn about women. They just as easily side with the men if that's what would get them to the end goal, which is just more power. And they're taking women and they're saying, these men, they hate you and give us your children, go to work. Like, the government's just insidious.
Right. Yeah, they're just using the women to get to the children. Yeah.
Well, you put it better than I did.
Yeah. And I'll just add one thing. So I went back to family court last November to try and get to see my daughter. I figured a year in jail, another 6 months on bail, like, this is long enough, right? And I presented an application in the Estevan to court to get my access back and see my daughter again. And also to wipe out the debt of my child support, because I wasn't working and I was in jail. And now I'm on bail and I'm not working and all these things. And so I presented those two arguments in court applications. So they just played games for 4 months. I couldn't even get a hearing. It's like, oh, this lawyer, they would take the documentation. Then when it came like the day before they're supposed to respond, like 30 days or whatever it was for that sort of thing, they'd say, oh, we're not the lawyer anymore. This is the new lawyer. So then they'd take 30 days and they'd do the same thing and say, oh, we're not the lawyer anymore. Now it's this lawyer. And they did that until I never even got a hearing till February from November. And in February, when I had the hearing, Justice Wildman, this is a woman, again, corrupt beyond belief, needs to lose her job, be tried, and go to jail. So I'm in the hearing, and they always leave me till the end of the day because they don't want other people witnessing me standing up to them. Maybe they'll get like, what do you call it? They'll get, when they see me stand up to the system, they'll feel enlightened sort of thing, and they'll get hope, So they leave me till the end. So I sat there and I watched this guy with garbage bags of documents fight losing his house because of his mortgage. And he went on and on for like an hour, hour and a half. So then it's my turn. And the judge says right away, just so you know, Mr. Jackson, you only have 20-minute time limit. I was like, what? She goes, you only have 20 minutes. I said, no, this is a complex case. There's lots of documents here, lots of evidence. I'm not going to shut it down to 20 minutes. Yes, you will, Mr. Jackson. So I presented my case, and I think she gave me a little longer, but 30 minutes, she shut me down. To this day, I have not received a decision. So it's been, she's reserved her decision. Now it's been 9 months, 8 months. And I know that they're not going to release it because they're fully expecting me in December 6th when I get sentenced that I'm going to go to jail. And then they can say, well, it doesn't matter. He's in jail. So they're legally denying me the right to see my daughter without any reason. Because, I mean, there's crackheads who get found on the living room floor with track marks, and they've been passed out for 3 days, and their kids got shitty, rash stained diaper. And yeah, they take the kid away for a week and give them back. But me, no, you're a heinous criminal. You don't get to see. I haven't even spoke to my daughter, nothing. But I can tell everyone, because I'm sure that's always a question at the end, Sarah never got vaccinated. So my wife stated in court that she's not vaccinated. but she said that she's still trying, but she won't. She's not able to do it because Sarah's refusing because of the lies I told her.
Well,
So
at least your efforts were not for naught.
yeah. Well, but it's not just Sarah, right? Like, people have to realize this fight is for all children, not just in Canada, the US, and the world, right? This is our rights. And if we lose this right to protect our children, we're finished.
No, it's a very valid point.
Yeah.
A father, Peter Biker says, a father's duty alone. Duty done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, how about to end the episode? Where can people follow you? How can they help you? Well, let us know.
So if you, I don't know if you posted it, but there is a Give Send Go link. It's on my Twitter at God's Offense, capital GOD. I think it's in my thing there. Yeah, it's below my name there, God's Offense. And then I tried to create a hashtag at God's Offense, or just hashtag God's Offense. If it works, I don't know. But they can join the Give Send Go and help support my legal fight. Again, I have to appeal this, and I have costs and everything else. So support would be great. They can go to my page and repost my stuff. Everybody just puts a like on it. Doesn't do anything. You have to share that stuff. You have to repost it on your own pages to spread the word, right? So, follow my interviews and repost them and share them. And it is starting to make some traction, word get out there. So hopefully I don't get, shot or like crash my car. So everybody knows I don't want to commit suicide, be like everybody else in the world who gets knocked off. I intend to fight this, even if I get put in jail. I'll continue to fight till the day I die. So just do whatever you can to support me. I just appreciate it. Even prayer.
I actually did have one final question. The Saskatchewan election's coming up. Are you optimistic? Do you not care?
I don't care. I don't think there's a way out. I understand you're a political candidate, and I get it, but I've kind of lost hope in that. My hope is in God. I think that you get these people say, "Oh, you can't. You gotta engage. You got to, do all this and vote and get out there and blah, blah, blah." I appreciate that. And that is the way it's supposed to work. That is a very good, way to change things, but it's too far gone. It's too far gone to me. And I understand, getting in the PPC, I have voted for the party in the past and I have nothing against them whatsoever. I think their platform is good. And I understand it. I just don't think we have the time to bring a new party in. I think our country will be done by then. I think the time is now, as in right now, today, to stop this from happening. I don't know how. I'm not advocating violence, but I think these judges and politicians need to be arrested, tried, and jailed for what they're doing. It has to stop, and it has to stop today. All these keyboard warriors out there, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, this isn't right. No, I'm pissed off." Does nothing. You want to do something, have 100,000 people show up at a protest, not 10, not 100. The Million Child March or whatever, what it was. I went to Estevan. There's like 10, 12 people. Like, come on. People just, they don't care. I don't get it. They just don't care. They're willing to type on their keyboard and complain and whine and maybe over coffee. But when it comes to sacrifice, they won't do anything. And that's what it takes. If you want to change what's happening right now, you have to put in a personal sacrifice or it's not going to work.
I put out a post today, and I'm sure I haven't coined this phrase, but we really have to start talking about Canada as a democratic communism. You're voting in communists.
It is. Yeah, it's desperate times, and I think desperate times call for desperate measures. They're so close with Bill C-293 and C-63 that if you don't speak up now, you're never gonna. So you better get out there and do something right now, or it's too late. And it may already be too late. Me, I'm expecting from God. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at God to step in and do something. Either give people instructions on how to stop this. Maybe there's a legal way that they've been hiding from us for 150 years, whatever the case. But we need instruction, and we need it from God, I believe, because man is just too faulty and too much invested in what we've been trained to do. Right? We're all been trained to follow this since children, since birth, and to snap out of it and find a way to change it is almost impossible.
I always tell people the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just can't live like this. Like there's no other way for me to say it. I cannot keep sending checks to the receiver general every 2 weeks. I can't. I can't live in fear of the SPCA coming over in their tactical gear because my dog barked a little too loud.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. Like there is a restaurant in Vancouver, Tap and Barrel. If you buy a beer inside, they will not allow you to carry the beer outside to the patio because there's a sidewalk between that, and it would be illegal. I'm like, you're telling me as an adult I'm not responsible enough to walk 4 feet with a beer?
Yeah.
I can't live like this.
Yeah. Either can I. It says in the Bible when Lot saw Sodom and Gomorrah and what was going on there, the sin and the destruction and everything, he was vexed. Like he just couldn't survive. And that's the way I am. I mean, they all expect us, they all want us to blow up and do something so they can label us, lock us up, and forget about us, which I'm not going to do. I have control over my emotions. I mean, I've been in court times and cried and got emotional, but I'm much better now. Like I can control it and I can speak truth. I can speak, understandably, like so people can understand what I'm saying. I can make a clear point. And but I feel vexed. I can't watch, like some days on Twitter, like everybody's wanting me. I can't. Sometimes you watch stuff of the suffering that's going on, and it's unbearable. It's unbearable to see people like Kirk Reese and all these other people who've been under the thumb like me, and see that they've lost everything and nobody's helping them, nobody's paying attention. And you get 90% of the social media platform on Twitter and all these supposed free dumb fighters are doing nothing but enriching themselves. Like it's like groups, like you get groups of these people on these chats and they're all like connected. And the minute someone puts out a different, even the ones that I follow, I was on one last night and somebody spoke up something that the group didn't agree with. Oh, you effing piece of shit, get off this. Like, it's like, what is going on? Like, you are supposed to be on this space helping people and changing the system. You're the worst Nazi I've seen. And I don't coin the phrase Nazi. I'm not that type of person. I don't even want to get into that. But, just control freaks, right? And they all like get each other on their shows all the time, back and forth, and they're all trying to make money. But do they tell the stories of their neighbor who just like got screwed, like you said, the SPCA or something that's happening? No, because it doesn't get the views they want, right? So they talk about Trudeau and they talk about Poilievre and Singh and Russia and Israel and Palestine and all these things. How about talking about your neighbor and what they're going through and helping them out, right? Show the love to the people instead of just promoting your bullshit channel so you can get followers, right? It's just crap. I mean, even the fundraising going on, for certain people in this country, it's all the same people. They're all huddled together. They won't help anybody else or talk about anybody else. They get like 100 people all fundraising for this one group of people or this one person. And it's like, oh, we have to help these guys and we have to help this person and that person and blah, blah, blah. But they don't even talk about anybody else. They don't help anybody else. They don't even mention them. Some do, but most don't, right? And to me, it's sickening. Like this right now should be all about love. It should all be about helping each other and designing or figuring out a way to fix this, not about promoting your own agenda. So I could go on.
Something's gone wrong.
It pisses me off. Yeah.
I'm gonna share a story of mine. Mine is like 1% of what you went through, and I almost feel ashamed to say it, but I had a dog, and the dog was barking. I went out to a party one night,
Yeah.
and the neighbors called the police. Okay, it's fine. This was in the 90s. The police would come to give you a ticket. I wasn't home. I get home. There's this. They put a notice on my door. It said potential animal abuse, neglect of animals, like irresponsible pet owner. And I read that. I remember I was drunk. I was like, what the hell? I crumpled it up. I threw it away. The next day, I'm not kidding you, two women showed up at my house, and she said, I'm Constable so-and-so. This is my officer. And they're wearing like SWAT gear, like tactical gear with a vest.
SPCA, yeah.
Yeah, the lady had her hands in there. And I'm like, what the hell do you guys want? I said, how can I help you? And she goes, yeah, you're neglecting your dogs. We need to come see your dogs. And I'm like, no, you're not coming on my property. And she was shocked. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, piss off. Like, here's my lawyer's number.
Yeah.
Go F yourself. So my lawyer calls her and he's like, do you really want to take this to court? These ladies are losers. I was like, whatever, let them come back to my house. They come back to my house. We go back in my backyard. It was ridiculous. They had a measuring tape. They're like, show us the doghouse. And they measured how many inches it's off the floor. They're like, is it ventilated? Like, I need to see your dog. And they've touched the doghouse to see if it's dry. I'm like, these are dogs. Like dogs are outside all the time. They're waterproof. It's absolutely ridiculous. They had to look at the water bowl to make sure that it was clean. So we've and this bureaucratic administrative state's gotten out of control.
Heaven forbid they go to a farm and look at the farm dog, eh? Sleeping out in the snow with a dish that hasn't been cleaned since the dog was born 10 years ago, and they're fed scraps and happy as can be, tail wagging all the time, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
as
just,
God intended. Yeah.
yeah. Like I said, we're run by idiots and incompetent people. They're promoted because they do what they're told, and that's it. They have no skills. They have no social skill of any kind. They're awkward. They have no friends. Like it's brutal. It's brutal. We got to stop it.
All right. Well, with people like you, at least we have a fighting chance, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I guess we can end it there. Arnold Haino, he's a friend of mine. He's running for the PPC. He's giving you off. He's really impressed. He's talking my story. Everyone wants to be the hero rather than working as a team. I guess he was talking about your criticism of the groups and groupthink. All right, Michael, Mr. Jackson, thank you very much for coming on. I cannot stress how happy I am you had the courage to come on. A lot of people are scared this day and age, so please stay in high spirits. And if there's anything I can do, reach out to me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.